Assalamu alaikum, welcome to a new episode of the LDM show. On today's show we're going to be discussing, is the universe eternal? And with me is Saad Mahmood. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
You well?
Yeah.
Okay, so Saad, for those of the viewers who don't know you, if you can introduce yourself and also why you want to actually talk about this particular topic.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'm doing a master's in astrophysics, and I want to talk about this topic because when you talk to your atheist friends, they say that the universe just exists.
It's just eternal.
It's a brute fact.
Yeah.
So it never had a beginning. And if you actually read or go through the stuff of famous scientists like Stephen Hawking, they say like, if the universe is self-contained, there is no need for God. So in today's program, we are going to challenge that philosophically, whether the universe had a beginning or not.
Okay, so that's good. So to begin off with, what's a good rational deductive argument? Let's define that first before we move on to what the argument actually is.
I will be sharing two sound deductive arguments.
Sure.
And a sound deductive argument is an argument, or a sound deductive argument has got three crucial properties. Number one, true premises. Number two, valid logic. Number three, a certain conclusion follows from the premises.
So it necessarily follows from
Yeah,
that. Okay.
follows, yeah. Now, before I drill into the argument, let me actually define important terminologies. Actual and potential infinite. An actual infinite is a collection of definite and discrete objects, and the number of members in that collection are actually infinite. Means this collection has an actually infinite number of members.
Would you say it's complete?
It's completed.
Okay.
Or all possible numbers have exhausted, and there's not a single number that is left to be filled.
And so I'm guessing potential is the opposite, where you're approaching the completeness, where you're not there.
Yeah. Potential infinite. In potential infinite, the number of members approaches to infinity, but never actually gets there.
Okay, sure. That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
a lot of sense, yeah.
So these are the two terms. Now let me actually get to the first argument. In the first argument, I'm going to show two things. First, actual infinite does not exist in reality.
Sure.
And it doesn't even make sense, the whole concept. So for that, let's do two thought experiment. Just imagine that we enter into a library with Brother Adnan Rashid.
Okay. Which isn't hard to do. He has one at home.
Yeah. When you go into a library with him, you better sleep there.
Yeah, you better. Oh man, I've been to a bookshop with him, so I know.
Yeah, he doesn't come out. So that library is a unique library. It has got on one of its shelves an actual infinite number of books.
Okay.
Now, what Adnan Bhai does, he takes all even number books off the shelf.
Sure.
How many books does he left with?
That's a bit difficult. Half of infinity, if that makes any sense.
Well, he actually subtracted infinite number of books.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Because it's odd. Right.
Odd. So he's still having infinite number of books, but that's weird because he just subtracted infinite number of books from infinite number of books, and he's still having the same amount which he started with. Means nothing lost. It's magic, isn't it?
It's a bit hard to understand, but basically it's like mathematically it doesn't make sense because you're removing
The same
infinity,
amount
but you still
from
have
the same
infinity,
amount.
and you still have the same.
And you're still having the same.
So this goes to show that it's incoherent to believe in the concept of a
Completed infinite.
infinity of objects.
Yeah,
correct.
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing? Potential.
Yeah, well, I want to make this thought experiment more unbelievable.
Sure.
Yeah, the same.
More unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just imagine that Adnan Bhai put those old books on the shelf. Now what he does this time, he takes all the books off the shelf. How many books does he left with?
Zero.
Yeah, that's true, but look at the point. Each time he subtracted same amount of book or same number of book from same number of
still
book,
infinity.
and he got two different answers. First he got infinite number of books. Second time he subtracted the same amount and he got zero. This actually shows the absurd nature of actual infinite.
So what we would say is that potential infinite is something which can happen, right? But actual infinity doesn't exist in real world. Is that the conclusion?
Yeah. That's what I'm going to summarize in the following form. if the universe is eternally old, premise 1, then an actual infinite number of events has occurred. Premise 2, but an actual infinite number of anything is impossible. We just saw.
Yes, absurd. It leads to mathematical irregularities. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the premise 3, that therefore the actual infinite does not exist in reality, and from 1, 2, 3 follows 4, therefore the universe is not eternal. So that was the first argument. Okay, my skeptic friend could say, well, Saad, okay, given potentially infinite time, we could form actual infinite by counting to infinity. And if you're a potentially infinite time, you keep counting, you will finally arrive at a point where you have completed infinite. That's it. Is that really possible?
Maybe. We don't know.
Well, let's do a thought experiment. Just imagine that my friend from Pakistan, a psychiatrist, he starts counting. Something happens to him, suppose. Maybe because he have had too many patients. So he starts counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, given potentially infinite time, will he ever count a number or land at a number which he can describe the biggest possible number? No number exists after that. Well, every possible number has exhausted. Is it possible?
No, because you always have one more number to add.
That's it. So, given potentially infinite time, even if you add one member after another, you can never form actual infinite, which you can always augment the counter series by 1.
Okay.
So, this actually shows that actual infinite does not exist in reality. Now, my atheist or a skeptic friend could say, well, okay, Saad, actual infinite does not make sense, actual infinite does not exist, potential does. So, the universe, history, in terms of its past event, could be potentially infinite. Means the series of past event could be beginningless. Is that possible?
Again, for the same reason, it wouldn't be.
Oh, well, why? Because if it were true, we wouldn't exist.
Yeah, because let's just say, you know, if the history of past events was infinite, this particular moment wouldn't exist.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Because for the present event to occur, the event immediately prior to it would have to occur.
Yeah.
And before that event could occur, the event immediately prior to it would have to occur.
And it goes
back and back.
Yeah.
So it actually follows that if his argument is true, then we wouldn't exist, and we do exist. So I can summarize this argument in the following way. Premise 1, or I can give you a good specific example. I think I'm thinking of, like for people who wants to understand this, like in a very specifically. Let me give you an example. Just imagine that I'm a sniper and I got my target, and before I could shoot, I have to ask permission from my officer. Say O1. And I say, O1, should I shoot? And O1 say, well, let me ask permission from my officer, O2. And if that went forever, will I ever get to shoot?
No.
That's it.
Well, it just asks permission after permission after permission. It just wouldn't work, yeah.
Yeah, so it actually follows that you cannot have the series of past event without beginning. So, the argument can be summarized in the following form. Premise 1, if the universe is infinitely old, then the series of past event is beginningless. Yeah. Premise 2, if the series of past event were beginningless, present event would occur.
Yeah.
Premise 3, present event has occurred. From 1, 2, 3 follows 4.
Exists,
yeah. From 1, 2, 3 follows 4. Therefore, the universe history is with beginning. The past event, the series of past events has to be finite.
We exist.
And from it follows the conclusion, therefore the universe must have had a beginning.
Okay. So is this would you say, a sound, valid, deductive argument which can't be challenged?
No. I have shown, 1, the premises are true. The logic is valid. You can assume the truth of the premises and check if the conclusion really follows. And it's a deductive argument. You cannot skip the conclusion if the premises are true and logic is valid.
Could you name for the future shows, which are obviously we don't have time for now, but for the future shows, what contentions can people bring up?
Well, Zeno's paradox.
Okay.
Yeah. And they can say, well, Cantor's work shows actual infinite does exist in reality. They can say actual infinite exists in reality. They can say, well, okay, actual infinite exists in reality because you had infinite at singularity. And one of the other famous contention is that, well, if you say actual infinite does not exist, then how come God is infinite?
Okay,
These are a couple of
so
contentions.
these are sort of contentions that people bring up now. I'm sure there's actually some written literature as well for people to read up in terms of these contentions, but also, inshallah, in the future, we're going to be having you speaking about more topics related to astrophysics as opposed to philosophy. But a big
That's
thank
my
you.
speciality.
A big thank you for coming on the show, and thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum barakatuh.